It's Tuesday, the 12th of May, from the MEN newsroom. This is Channel M's Lunchtime News, and these are today's headlines. As a man's questioned over the murder of a teenager in Stratford and bailed, it comes out police warned his family he was mixed up in gangs. Also coming up, a Channel M exclusive as we get the first TV interview with a boy who was stabbed in Partington at Easter. And as United States with Barcelona in Rome gets closer, how easy will it be for fans to get tickets?
It just seems now that if you've got plenty of money, you can go and watch Manchester United. If you're a working class man, you haven't got to pray.
Good afternoon. First this lunchtime, a man being questioned over the murder of a teenager in Stretford has been released on bail. The 22-year-old was being held over the murder of Giuseppe Gregory from Ardwick, who was shot outside a pub on Sunday night. It turns out the 16-year-old's family had been warned 6 months ago that he was mixed up in gangs. We've been asking people near there how they feel about it.
So young, it can happen to anyone. There's loads of young kids around here. All of them just to say, thinking they're bad, and it can happen to anyone, can't it? So
it is concerning, as it's very close to where we live, and that's the way of life at the moment, I'm afraid. So not much we can do about it.
It's getting quite harsh getting used to stuff like that, and it's like my friends have been jumped around here once or twice, so it's just like, it's not rough area, but sometimes people just get involved with the wrong crowd and stuff happens, so it's hard to really come with it.
This comes as Giuseppe's family and teachers have paid tribute to him. Our reporter Kevin Duffy has more from outside his school.
Yes, thanks, James. Now, as the investigation continues into why Giuseppe Gregory was shot dead on Sunday night, some alarming-sounding allegations about gang connections are starting to emerge. But at the same time, we are being reminded that what we're talking about here is a schoolboy, a 16-year-old lad who was a pupil here at Cedarmount High School, which is part of Gorton Education Village. Now, the acting head, Anita Counter, didn't want to go on camera, but has said this in a statement. Giuseppe was a highly intelligent and articulate young man who had a positive attitude to his studies. We have every confidence that he would have gone on to achieve considerable exam success. That's the acting head speaking there. And we've had statements from his mum and dad, James and Samantha, who didn't want to appear on camera either. His mum, Samantha, says, "Not only have I lost my only son, but my mother has lost her only grandson." And Giuseppe's dad, James, says he and his son shared the same birth date and that family, friends and members of the community are all grieving over their loss. Now, at this stage, Greater Manchester Police are maintaining through sources that they believe Giuseppe had some sort of gang connection. They're not saying what, but Giuseppe's mother has said that she is absolutely sure, as far as she is concerned, her son was not a member of a gang. Back to you.
Kevin, thanks. A boy who was stabbed in the stomach last month has spoken out for the first time about his ordeal and recovery. Michael Green, who's 17 and seen here in intensive care, was attacked in Partington on Easter Sunday after trying to help a friend who got into a row with a group of youths. He's been talking exclusively to Channel M's Ben Bland.
Well, I thought I got punched in the back at first, but then one of my mate's little brothers said I've got a knife in me. So I've looked round, I've seen it, I've pulled it out, and then I just felt like all my insides were coming out of me. So I just ran over to my mum. She started screaming, and I just collapsed.
What was going through your mind then when all this was happening?
Just I felt like I was dying. Thought I really was going to die.
And what was the next thing that you knew when you came round?
Well, I come round about 4 days later, I think. I was all well, but then about a week later they come round and told me I've got a hole in me somewhere. I had to have another operation.
How many operations have you had so far?
I think I've had about 4, 2 little ones, 2 major ones.
And you can see more from Ben's interview with Michael on our early evening news from 5 o'clock tonight. A teenage boy who was strangled by a man carrying an axe during a robbery in which £50,000 worth of jewellery was stolen. The attack happened at the Newman Jewellers on Halliwell Road in Bolton on Saturday morning. 3 siblings who work for the family-run business had arrived by car and 2 of them got out to open up for the day. The third, a 15-year-old boy, remained in the car and a group of up to 4 men smashed the rear passenger window. One of the gang members stole a bag from the car boot containing Asian jewellery worth up to £50,000. 6 more men who were arrested in last month's terror raids across the northwest are at a tribunal, arguing they should be released on bail. They're among 12 currently held at Strangeways Jail while they await deportation. 3 other men have already had their bail applications adjourned till the end of July. Gordon Brown's due to make a speech later, talking tough on crime fighting. The Prime Minister will say how new ways of enforcing the law are needed to cope with changing crime patterns. He'll release figures that show crime levels are down by 40% in the 12 years since Labour came to power. Researchers reckon Manchester United's Champions League final against Barcelona could be worth more than £6 million to the city's economy. That's even though the match takes place thousands of miles away in Rome. A top firm of accountants says pubs, restaurants and bookie shops will benefit most. United fans are waiting to hear whether they've been allocated a ticket for the game. They're expected to find out this Friday. But as Nina Warhurst explains, the chances of an average season ticket holder getting their hands on one are slim.
Despite Rome's Stadio Olimpico having a capacity of 67,000, both Manchester United and Barcelona have been allocated just 19,500 seats. Now that leaves around 40%, which will be distributed between corporate partners, sponsors and officials at the discretion of UEFA. And that means that there'll be even more disappointed season ticket holders than last year.
Well, I mean, they could sell 50, 60,000. It's just unfortunate that so many tickets go in other directions and the fans who stay loyal to the team and follow them week in, week out and follow them into Europe, some of them won't get to see the game.
Of course, it's not United's fault they've been given so few tickets, but Channel M has learned that they have given preferential treatment to executive members who pay an average of £3,500 a season. Seen as an incentive for them to renew their executive membership, they've been told that if they do, they'll be guaranteed a ticket to Rome. And that's infuriating fans like Dave, who's been going to Old Trafford for more than 40 years, but having missed just 1 European tie this season, expects to miss out on the final.
Bitter, dead annoyed. Manchester United are totally out of order. It's not the first time. You know, it just seems now that if you've got plenty of money, you can go and watch Manchester United. If you're a working class man, you haven't got to pray.
Manchester United says just 500 executive members have taken advantage of the offer, but Dave says that's not the point. He says with an estimated 3,500 tickets being offered to staff and sponsors, he says the real fans who've crossed the country and the continent could have been left with just 6,000 tickets. A sign of the times perhaps, but at what cost?
As you can see, I've got my season ticket renewal for next season. The way things are at the moment and the fiasco with tickets at Old Trafford, I'm considering very much so to rip this up, just like hundreds and probably thousands more fans at Old Trafford who feel the same way. We're just not getting the fair deal out of Manchester United.
Nina Warhurst, Channel M News.
A picture of 2 men police want to question over a burglary in Wigan's been released. They'd gone home with an 18-year-old woman who'd been drinking with a friend in the town. She took this image of them before going to bed, leaving them in the house. When she woke up, they'd gone, as had her laptop, mobile phone, camera and games console. David Cameron is promising to take action against Tory MPs who've abused their Commons expenses. He says the conduct of some senior Conservatives is out of order. Newspaper reports show some use their allowances to pay for the upkeep of their gardens and the maintenance of swimming pools. Some may be told to repay the money. A schoolgirl who got trapped in a pool of slurry in Partingtons had to be rescued by firefighters. They arrived shortly after 8 o'clock last night to find the 15-year-old jammed in a gully and suffering from hypothermia near Manchester Road. She was freed and taken to hospital by helicopter and was later discharged. Bosses from Manchester's Museum of Science and Industry are taking their fight to get back the cash they lost in the Icelandic banking crisis to London. They'll be visiting the House of Commons to put their case forward, as Director Steve Davis has been telling us.
So far, this has all been conducted by letter and by some phone calls, but the long-planned objective of our meeting at one of the committee rooms in the House of Commons is for us to, in the space of about half an hour, and we have been very kindly hosted by Tony Lloyd MP, who is the MP for Manchester Central, to make our case directly to people. But we will give our local MPs the opportunity to quiz us, and in some respects to see whether or not there are any flaws in our argument. We don't believe there are. And also to take advice from those MPs who might want to give it us about how we take our campaign a stage further.
2 more cases of swine flu have been confirmed here in Greater Manchester. A man from Tameside is thought to have caught the virus from a friend in London. Another from Oldham is being treated after recently coming back from Mexico. Medics say both are at home and recovering well. A man's been injured in a hit and run in Bolton. A car drove over the victim's foot while he was working at a waste management depot. The 55-year-old had previously asked the motorist to follow the site's one-way system. He then fell to the floor, also hurting his arm. The team pushing to increase standards in Greater Manchester schools are predicting improvements in this year's exam results. £50 million is being spent on top of existing funding, and the programme's now been underway for 12 months. Children's Minister Beverly Hughes says she wants all schools to make the extra effort over the next 2 years.
Our kids in Greater Manchester, there's 600,000 of them. You know, they're as good as children anywhere. And we know at the moment, despite improvements in recent years, that they still are underperforming in some areas. And that particularly applies to youngsters perhaps from communities where it's not been traditional to go into further education. Maybe their mums and dads had to leave school early, you know, so they don't know anybody who's gone on to college and university. And there's still big gaps between what those youngsters achieve and youngsters from, you know, more middle-class backgrounds, if you like. And so for me, closing that gap between youngsters who perhaps come from backgrounds where that's, you know, higher education is normal, and the rest is a key objective of this challenge.
The fastest man on earth is on course to make it to Manchester on Sunday for the Great City Games. That from Usain Bolt's coach, who says he's recovered from a car crash at the end of last month, which left him needing surgery on his left foot. The runner will take part in a 150 metres street sprint. Let's have a look at the lunchtime sports headlines now. Checking all those details for us, here's Ian Irving.
Thanks, James. Manchester City are set to reward Stephen Ireland with a new contract at the end of the season, worth around £50,000 a week. The 22-year-old midfielder has scored 13 goals this year and has recently been voted one of the top 6 young players in the country. However, the news for Didier Mann, Darius Vassell, Danny Mills and Michael Ball isn't so good, with all 4 expected to leave the club over the coming weeks. The Bellevue Aces narrowly lost out 46-44 to Peterborough at home in the Elite League last night. New signing Morten Reisiger top scored with 18 points on his debut. Carlos Tevez is in the headlines once again after it was revealed that Liverpool have contacted the player's agent to discuss a possible move to Anfield, although City legend Gary Owen has other ideas.
If he would consider our football club, then he would be one that, you know, you would want to take, because what you get from him is, I mean, you've only got to watch him. Whenever he starts or whenever he comes on, he gives you 100%. He's not a prolific goal scorer, but he's somebody that really, if he comes on the open market and he's allowed to leave, I think there'll be other clubs apart from Manchester City, not just in this country, but I mean in Spain and other places, that'll be wanting to have Tevez services. So if good players come available and they can better our side, I'm all for it. He would certainly better our team.
In other football news, Maxfield Town have released 13 players from their first-team squad. Keeper John Brain and John Rooney are just 2 of the 5 senior players who remain at the Moss Rose. Wigan's Chris Kirkland is unlikely to face United tomorrow night after injuring his back against West Brom at the weekend, while teammate Antonio Valencia has been linked with a move to United should Cristiano Ronaldo leave the club after the Champions League final. And speaking of United, Lou Macari has added his support to the argument that UEFA were wrong in their decision not to revoke Darren Fletcher's red card.
On the night, I agree with you. Rossetti, the referee, from where he was positioned, it looked penalty kick.
It did, yeah.
It looked a blatant sending off. But surely when he goes back home and sits down again and watches what we've all seen now, yeah, hope people forgive me for giving the penalty kick, because he did nick the ball away, but I've made a massive mistake in sending this lad off. And to rectify the mistake, I'm going to inform the people that obviously employ him to say I've made a mistake.
Non-league side Hyde United faced going out of business after HM Revenue and Customs began winding up proceedings against them over unpaid tax. The Tameside outfit are understood to have debts of around £200,000, but Chairman Steve Hartley has held talks with HMRC to give the club more time to pay the bills. That's all your sport for now. Back to James.
Ian, thanks very much for the update. There's plenty to come this lunchtime, including a big pot of cash to renovate churches here in Greater Manchester and celebrations for some of Bury's most famous faces.
Like Elbow and like Zoe, really, we've had an extraordinary time over the last few months of these kind of generous presentations and things like that. So it is lovely. And what you tend to do is you tend to think of them as equal.
This is Channel M's Lunchtime News. Welcome back. Don't forget, if you go to our website, channelm.co.uk, you can see this programme again and any of our other reports as well, including the church leader from New York who's been visiting the city and the new high-tech computers that are to be given to every frontline officer in Greater Manchester. That's at channelm.co.uk. Back now to our top story, and a man who was being questioned over the murder of a teenager in Stratford has now been released on bail. The 22-year-old was being held over the fatal shooting of Giuseppe Gregory at a pub car park late on Sunday night. We've been getting reaction from people living near where the attack took place.
So young, you know, it can happen to anyone. You know, there's loads of young kids around here. All of them just to say, you know, thinking they're bad, and it can happen to anyone, can't it? So
it is concerning, as it's very close to where we live, and that's the way of life at the moment, I'm afraid, so not much we can do about it.
It's getting quite harsh getting used to stuff like that, and it's like when my friends have been jumped around here once or twice, so it's just like, it's not a rough area, but sometimes people just get involved with the wrong crowd and stuff happens, so it's hard to really come with it.
Next, many churches right across the northwest are to get a share of more than £2 million for urgent repairs. It's been made available by English Heritage. Beverly Walkden's been to one in Salford that'll benefit.
We've all seen how many churches there are falling into disrepair as congregations are dropping off and the money to support them isn't around. So the Heritage Lottery Fund highlight that as a really important aspect of our heritage. And obviously through the funding we've given over 156 million since we started the scheme in 2002 to really help with that backlog of repairs and help congregations look after their churches for the future.
This Greek Orthodox church will celebrate its 150th anniversary next year. It's also a Grade 2 listed building, and it's believed to be the very first purpose-built Greek Orthodox church in the whole country.
Well, this church was built in 1860 to the designs of Clegg and Knowles, who were local architects who did a lot of work in Manchester. It was built for a group of Greek merchants who were here to deal in textiles and presumably took advice from their Mancunian counterparts when it came to seeking some architects to do them a building.
So how big is the Greek community around here?
There's a quite large community, about 800 families in whole Manchester. Yes, and about 6,000 students in the universities of Manchester, from Greece and from Cyprus.
Katie Price says her split from Peter Andre is not what she wants, but that the decision is out of her hands. The model says she's devastated by her husband's decision to divorce her and she'll always love him. Bookies are already offering odds of 2 to 1 on the couple getting back together. Some members of Greater Manchester Police are using their love of music to help raise money for the force to spend on fighting crime. They started a big band 5 years ago and have now produced a CD. The musicians were inspired to do it because their concerts for private and official functions were proving so popular. 500 copies of their disc have been pressed and are selling for £10 each. Some of Bury's finest athletes and artists have been given a rare honour. Filmmaker Danny Boyle, members of the rock band Elbow and Paralympian Zoe Robinson have all been handed the Freedom of the Borough to celebrate their achievements. Georgia Calvin-Smith was there.
Bury is booming, and with the help of some of its most successful natives, the world knows it. Oscar-winning filmmaker Danny Boyle, multiple award-winning rock band Elbow and gold medal-winning Paralympian Zoe Robinson were all honoured with the Freedom of the Borough of Bury yesterday afternoon as a mark of respect for their hard work and success.
Like Elbow and like Zoe, really, we've had an extraordinary time over the last few months of this kind of these kind of generous presentations and things like that. So it is lovely, and what you tend to do is you tend to think of them as equal.
We can't drive sheep anywhere we want. That's unfortunate. No, it's just a great honour. It's the biggest honour the borough can bestow upon a normal person.
It means a lot to my family because the thought I couldn't really get recognised in this way with all the rest at the bottom of the pile.
The privilege is one that is rarely bestowed. Only 26 people have been honoured in this way since 1899, and only one freeman of the borough is still alive. Those supporting the motion to make these 7 people the newest of Bury's freemen made it clear that their success was not just a flash in the pan. 19-year-old Zoe Robinson has overcome the difficulties she faces in suffering from cerebral palsy to become one of the youngest members of the 2008 Paralympic team. She won gold in her sport of Boca and has been tipped for success in the 2012 London Games. In the last year, the 5 members of Elbow have together won a Brit Award, a Mercury Prize and an NME Award. They met and formed at Bury College almost 20 years ago and are still going strong. With Train Spotting, Shallow Grave and Slumdog Millionaire behind him, Danny Boyle's career has consistently proven that the British film industry is one to be reckoned with.
As much as Elbow, Danny Boyle and Zoe Robinson must appreciate today's honour, this is not just about them and their successes. This is also a reflection of Bury and its achievements and hopes for the future.
You do feel that there are certain values that you're brought up with which come from the town, come from a small town nature, that you, whether you like them or not, actually, you carry them with you.
The slogan behind Bury's latest plans for development is Bury but better. And when it comes to its people, at least, it seems that all is going according to plan. Georgia Calvin-Smith, Channel M News.
Well, we've had another bright morning across Greater Manchester. Let's see what the afternoon and the rest of the week's looking like now with Michelle Eagleton.
Well, we're having another sunny, glorious day across Greater Manchester. Highs of between 16 and 17 for most of us, so do enjoy a really sunny, really nice afternoon. It's going to be dry all day and into the evening. We're only going to see a few showers as we move towards the night, and overnight, well, those showers are going to continue, unfortunately. Temperatures dropping down to 7, and tomorrow will be a mixture of sunshine and showers. So not all doom and gloom out there. Make the most of it because Thursday and Friday are looking wet and windy, but by Saturday we will see some more sunshine.
This is Channel M, our top stories. Police have released on bail a man being questioned over the murder of a teenager in Stratford. Giuseppe Gregory was shot in the head in the car park of the Robin Hood pub on Sunday night. It's understood police had warned his mum last November that his life could be at risk because he was mixed up with gangs. A boy who was stabbed in Partington at East has exclusively told Channel M how he thought he was going to die. Michael Green was put into intensive care by the attack and he's only now spoken out about it for the first time. And 6 more men battling against plans to deport them after they were arrested in anti-terror raids last month are appearing before a tribunal. Properties in Cheetham Hill were among those searched. Those are today's headlines, and that was the Lunchtime News. We'll have much more on all those stories with Andy Craig.